Hello and welcome to Education Edge, your one-stop shop for all certification need. Today, we are here to talk about something really important. PMI has yet again changed the PMI Authorized PMP Exam Prep. Now, they've moved from version 2.1 to 3.0. So what are these changes that have been made by PMI? It's pretty substantial. So if you are preparing for PMP exam right now, you should work hard and write the exam and get it over with. Come 2023, these changes are going to kick in and there will be a new exam that will be built and designed around these changes. We know about these changes being ATP authorized training provider. We will release this guide in November 2022, but this guide will be now soon available to students in January so that they can start preparing for their exam accordingly. And once again, if you're right now preparing for the PMP exam, you might even want to write this exam before January. So what are some of the changes? Let's take a look at those changes. And yes, of course, our course at Education Edge is conducted by myself, Hemant Dharial, and Dave. We have achieved all the certifications that have been provided by PMI as of now. Let's talk about some of these changes now. So the student manual is being released in 2023. However, the instructor manual has been released. So what are these changes to version 3.0? Let me just say these changes are substantial. And let's talk about the material changes to PMI Authorized PMP Exam Prep 2.1, now changed to 3.0. As we all know, in the guide 2.1, so 2.1 version of PMI Authorized PMP Exam Prep, we had 5 lessons. Lesson number 1, creating a high-performing team. Lesson number 2, starting the project, and keeping in mind that starting the project had 2 components to it. Component 1 was some sort of initiating early stages of a project and understanding the business need, determining the methodology, and the second and the heavy component of this lesson was the planning component. Now, in the new version, PMI has broken it down, and we'll talk about how are they presenting it in the new guide. Doing the work, lesson number 3 from this current guide is being removed, folks. You won't find this lesson there. Lesson number 4, keeping the team on track, the name is being changed. Lesson number 5, keeping the business in mind, and this is where PMI has taken a very logical and rational step. Keeping the business in mind should always have been the first lesson. And we could never figure it out since 2020 why this was lesson number 5, because the first thing we do as project managers is that we try to first understand our own organization, our own business, and then we start this process of executing the project from beginning to the end. So now in this new guide, lesson number 5 is the new lesson 1. And of course, a lot of changes have been made to lesson number 5. So now let's take a look at this new guide. What are we waiting for? Let's just go ahead and let's take a look at 3.0. Version 3.0 has been released to the instructors. Lesson number 1, instead of calling it keeping the business in mind, now we are calling it business environment. Know all about your business environment, the environmental factors, the OPAs, the culture of the organization, the people in the organization, processes, policies, all of them put together as lesson number 1 called understanding, knowing our business environment. Now, this is where PMI has simplified it a little bit now. They have starting the project, the early stages of the project, the very early stages of the project. could be maybe development of a project charter, identification of our stakeholders. PMI has spent a lot of time here talking about this process of identify stakeholders. You will also see that PMI has removed this lesson called creating a high-performing team, lesson number 2 from the previous guide, and they have integrated it throughout because, of course, building a high-performing team is a journey. It happens throughout the life cycle of a project. Lesson 2, lesson 3 in this version 3.0, plan the project from predictive or waterfall standpoint, from hybrid standpoint, and from adaptive or agile standpoint. PMI has been leaning towards adaptive mindset in last couple of years, but this year PMI has decided to embrace the old predictive mindset and bring more of it in the guide, and that's what they have done this time. Lesson number 3, planning the project. Lesson 4, lead the team, which is more like executing component or doing the work component of our previous version 2.1. 5th, supporting the project team, something like monitoring and controlling. But most organizations are steering away from calling it monitoring because human resources should not be monitored, and there's this new idea of people and respecting that interaction with people, right, over processes, tools, etc. And lesson number 6, and this is what I've liked in this new guide, lesson number 6, PMI has now created a dedicated lesson for closing the project. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, somehow PMI and the folks who designed this guide, they totally forgot that closing the project is a dedicated process in project management, whether you are working in an agile-based project, hybrid project, or predictive project. In predictive project, more so, we have this process is a huge process. In agile too, at the end of iteration, we have to ensure that the definition of done is met. So lesson number 6, closing the project phase, all those good things that must be done at the end of an agile phase project or an iteration, or at the end of a predictive or hybrid project. So let's just take a look at the next slide. What are some of the core differences between this current guide and the guide that you will soon receive in January 2023? What are the core differences? Number 1 difference, there were 5 lessons in the current guide, and in this new guide, version 3.0, which will kick in from January 2023 onwards, has 6 lessons. That's number 1. Number 2, in the current guide, the version 2.1, there were 5 lessons. However, in the new guide, we have 6 lessons, and now business environment was lesson number 5. And in the current version, business environment, rightfully so, is lesson number 1. Starting the project was initiating and planning in the previous guide. Now there are 2 separate dedicated lessons, lesson 2 and lesson 3, towards starting the project and planning the project. Doing the work in the current guide has been eliminated, folks. The name has been changed, and to some extent, content has also been changed, and it's now called leading the project, lesson number 4. Keeping the team on track, lesson number 4, now has been changed to support the team performance, support the project team performance. Now PMI continues to evolve the content, and sometimes when the changes are too often, even for instructors like seasoned instructors like us, it becomes a little bit of challenge to continue and this becomes very disruptive too, even for course participants. This becomes extremely disruptive. So my request to PMI would be not to bring such changes every now and then, and keep a very stable standard. It's very important to keep a stable standard, right? It shows maturity with the governing body too. Now, lesson number 1. Creating the high-performing team in the old standard has been totally removed, and it has been integrated throughout all the lessons. No, in our current guide, version 2.1, the guide that we are currently using to prepare for PMP exam, there was no dedicated lesson on closing. Now there is one, lesson number 6. Closing the project. A good step here from PMI to speak about how a project should be closed on predictive projects using the acceptance criteria listed in the project management plan, on adaptive hybrid project, the idea of definition of done. So these are some of these changes. And my suggestion is, if you are currently studying version 2.1, dedicate some more time, prep a little harder, and get this exam done with before 2023. And if you're planning to take the course right now in December, I would say do not take any course right now. Join a new course that is starting in January that will cater to this new PMI Authorized PMP Exam Prep 3.0. Once again, thank you so much, and we welcome you all to Education Edge to start your learning journey with us. Have a great day.